quite a lot to reply to there. Let me first say, Gideon, you started with a peroration about me not mentioning the Palestinian casualties. That's because I started by mentioning the war, and there is no law of war that says you're allowed to start a war and then complain when you lose it. And if Mehdi cares about the Palestinian casualties, as I'm sure he does, then tell your bosses in Qatar to tell their friends in Gaza to stop the war and give back the hostages. Gideon says Israel needs nothing more than criticism. As if Israel doesn't get criticism. Wow, he doesn't even read his own country's press. By the way, you said the other day in an interview, Gideon, I couldn't care less about the Jewish state. So we know very well where you're coming from. Let me just say a couple of things about that I didn't get to in my opening remarks, but are important. You know, if you didn't throng the streets of this city or any other for the actual genocide going on in Sudan, not the one that Mehdi and Gideon pretend is happening, but the actual genocide going on in Sudan, if you didn't spend weekend after weekend doing that, but you did come out for the post-October the 7th protests, you're an anti-Semite. If, like Mehdi once sent a tweet condemning that, it doesn't give you quite enough smoke cover. You know, if you protested not a bit, didn't set up a tent when Bashar al-Assad was killing 6 times the number of people in a decade that Israel and all of its enemies have lost in 75 years of war, you are an anti-Semite. And I would just add one other thing. I know that the media has tried to reframe the motion. I'm not going to allow it either. You know, maybe there is somebody in the world. Pakistan was invented, created as a state around the same time as Israel. I reckon that if this debate tonight was about Pakistan started a lot of wars, it suffered a lot of wars, it suffered a lot of casualties, caused a lot of casualties. But you know what? If somebody said, I think Pakistan should be abolished. They just don't have the right to a state, and although they had one set up for them many decades ago, we should abolish it. I think people would say, And then if the person said, but, oh, by the way, although I want to abolish that state, I have no problem with the Pakistani people. Please, of course you would.
Wow, folks. Just another great video clip of Douglas Murray defending the people of Israel, the state of Israel, from anti-Semites like Mehdi Hasan and Gideon. And so there was so many. This was from the Monk debate some time ago. And the thing that I like about Douglas Murray is he doesn't pull any punches. He really doesn't. A lot of people, when they go on a debate, when they're talking to somebody else, see, a lot of people, when you're not face-to-face with someone, oh, sure, you can go on the debate, you can go on the attack, you can say all kinds of things. Because that person's not in front of you. I mean live, not in front of you, live at all. That's not what's going on a bit. But here, face to face, no room to back off. Douglas Murray does what very few others do. And you're in a debate setting. You're out there to prove your point, to make the case, to win the debate. And so he does it brilliantly. At the same time, goes ahead and calls out his opponent what he really feels his opponent is. An anti-Semite hiding under the guise of basically saying, I'm not anti-Semite, I'm not an anti-Semitic, I'm not anti-Jewish, I'm not anti the Jewish people, I'm not anti-Israel, I'm not anti the state of Israel. I just don't like Zionists. So I'm anti-Zionist, I'm anti-Zionism. That's what's going on. And Douglas Murray literally brings a hammer down on him. And then when he goes after Gideon, who says, there hasn't been any criticism of the state of Israel, what are you talking about? That's all anybody ever does. That's all they ever do. And they're all hypocrites. Mehdi Hasan, I have never heard him. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I watched a lot of clips out there. Maybe I've missed him. Or if he's done it just, I would say I could count maybe on one hand, if I'm incorrect, the number of times that Mehdi Hasan has talked about what's happening in Kashmir with the Muslims. What about the Muslims in Burma? What about the 2 to 3 million incarcerated Muslims in China? But see, the difference is, and here's the dirty little secret, there's no Jewish people involved in Kashmir. The Jewish people have nothing to do. The state of Israel has nothing to do with what's happening in Kashmir. The state of Israel, Jewish people don't have anything to do with what's happening in China against the Uyghur Muslims. Can you imagine if there was a Jewish state or a Jewish, just any type of a Jewish municipality or a Jewish township or a Jewish, city that had predominantly, Jewish people living near, where the Muslims are being incarcerated, or near the Muslims city in China, or if there was a Jewish, I'm trying to think of the word because it's not a government, obviously, but a majority Jewish settlement, let's say, in Kashmir or outside of Kashmir. Could you imagine? You ever see any protests for anything happening in Kashmir against the Muslims, or in Burma, or even in sub-Saharan South Africa, when you have Muslim states fighting each other? I never saw a single protest for anywhere outside. No, not around the world, not in Western Europe, anywhere. In America, in Canada, Australia, Britain, Spain, France, Holland, the Netherlands, Finland, Poland. I never saw any type of, protest, a march against what was happening with the Chinese, with the Muslims in China. Never did. And then when Douglas brings up the fact that if this was happening in the country of Pakistan or any country, that was formed in 1947. Well, yeah, so now he's saying, and we got to get rid of Pakistan now. It should never have been formed. What the hell did the British people do? What did the British government do? It partitioned India into two countries. At that time, it was West Pakistan and then East Pakistan. And then we all know in 71 with the war that happened, East Pakistan wanted to be separated from West Pakistan. India helped in that. So when you get upset that the British are involved in the internal aspects of, government and their colonialism and their imperialism, does anybody talk about, I'm just saying, the Indian government's involvement of their colonialism, of their imperialism, of their butting into West Pakistan, East Pakistan's business, fomenting what was happening in East Pakistan to become their own country, which eventually became Bangladesh? Did anybody talk about that? Just wondering, Mehdi. I'm just sort of wondering about this. So all this hypocrisy, and he called out saying to Gideon, to his Qatari terrorist brothers and sisters, his Hamas terrorist brothers and sisters living under the Qatari, government, high on the hog. That's right, high on the hog, living under the protection of the Qatari government in their multi-million-dollar palaces, while their fighters and their minions continue to commit horrific acts of terrorism against the Israeli people. Now, we can have a separate discussion on whether we think Israel has gone, the proportionality of their attacks of defending their country, and we can have that discussion at a separate time. But the fact of the matter is that there would have been nothing on the scale of what Israel has done now if October 7th never occurred. And that's a fact, 1,000%. Anyways, folks, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. Hope you enjoyed this clip. Put your comments down below. Let me think what you thought of Douglas Murray's response. Really love to know. Share that with all of us. Take a look at our other video links above and below. My final thought is always, when you're right, and when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.